Hi, I'm Roberta Glass, and today we have on everyone's favorite guest, Isabelle McFadden, to talk about Madeleine McCann, fact or fiction. Stay tuned. So to dispel the Madeleine McCann myths, we have with us today Isabelle McFadden of the Madeleine McCann Case Tweets. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, Roberta. How are you?
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And before we get into it, I just want to announce that this channel now has a Facebook group dedicated to it called the Roberta Glass True Crime Report Facebook group. So look for it on Facebook. So and join in the conversation about Madeleine McCann and so many other true crime cases. So the first thing I want to start with is about a claim made by Swan about charity collectors and orphanages. Can you talk a little bit about what that's all about? And before Madeleine McCann was abducted, there was perhaps Swan, who wrote the book with Summers about Madeleine McCann. She is saying in this Netflix documentary that before Madeleine went missing, there were questionable charity collectors walking around Praia da Luz that should have been looked into as possible abductors.
Okay, yes. That is exactly what she said. Now, these rumors have been around for a while. There was a woman, Pat Perkins, and when you listen to Pat Perkins on Netflix, you can see what kind of a woman she is. She's definitely a woman with her own prejudice. I can tell you that in the area of Praia da Luz, there is an orphanage. There's actually 3 of them altogether. The one who I believe the charity collector, Pat Perkins, was asking, was in contact with, or the gentleman that came asking for donations, definitely had to do with this particular orphanage. This orphanage is amazing. 55 children. The pictures of the orphanage are absolutely amazing. On staff, they have a psychologist, an MD, they have a seamstress, a cook, security people, just lovely. 55 children are cared for, some of them actually British expats. People don't understand that this area of the Algarve has many people who have left England for many years, some at even a younger age. And things happen to families. And sometimes British children themselves end up living in Portugal when, maybe somebody died, and they don't go back to England because they are now really Portuguese children. This is where they've lived, this is what they know, and I think both governments are probably very comfortable with that. This is just how it is. As I am an immigrant child, I came to the United States at the age of 15.
Right.
I became comfortable with the United States. I'm an American, although I love my country. This is now where I am. This is probably where I will one day die and be buried. This is my new home. So this is
Portugal becomes their new home. And so what was claimed was that these charity collectors, meaning people going around, which you explained to me before we started taping, is a kind of a tradition to kind of go around the neighborhood. Do they have a bucket or what did they have? Like a bucket or a tin or something? Hat? I don't know. And go ahead.
Of course, when this woman made this claim about the charity collectors, anyone in Europe, Southern Europe, especially Portugal, Spain, France, my mother is French, And I know that when I was in Monaco, people did the same thing. You're on vacation, you're relaxing, and people approach you for different charities and different, charity units, asking for donations. You relax, so you're probably going to donate, and people know this, and it's great because everybody benefits. You're in a good mood, and somebody is going to benefit from your lovely charity. This is not a new thing.
Okay.
You're on vacation. You're going to be approached at some point. I know that last time I was in Paris, I was approached by somebody asking for money for an animal shelter. And I think I gave €2 for this animal shelter. So maybe I was cheap. I should have given more.
So the idea that this orphanage didn't exist, that they were asking for money for a charity that didn't exist, making them very shadowy, is untrue.
It's not true, no. Okay. And I've spoken to the representative from the charity, and, I told them, I said, I'm actually going to make a donation, and I might do something to encourage some other people to make donations, because I think they actually might be heard. I mean, Robin Swan has gone on Netflix, one of the largest platforms, and claimed that there was no orphanage anywhere near Luge. And this is horrible, really. I mean, we don't know how it will affect donations, but surely if I was a foreigner and somebody tells me, let's say I am in Australia, and somebody says, oh, in Sydney there are, fake charity collectors for an orphanage, and it's been on Netflix, and somebody approaches me, I'm probably going to say, oh, I heard that was fake. I'm not going to give you my money. I'm not going to spend my money in Australia and, give money to a fake collector. That's maybe what I would think. So who knows what kind of effect this will have on these charities that are completely legitimate, that did exist. And Robin Swan is completely wrong about it. I'm not going to accuse her of lying. I'm just going to say that for an author, and I understand at some point they call themselves journalists, she's incorrect. She has made a huge error. I actually would recommend she make a donation to the orphanage and maybe help them, because they do exist.
That's a good suggestion. So the second question I have, or the myth that I'd like to dispel, is that the McCanns have been cleared.
Okay, the McCanns have not been cleared. It was made clear by the Portuguese Supreme Court. The McCanns have not been cleared. In Portugal, not just in Portugal, in the United States too, to make somebody an official suspect, it's such, right on the dotted line. In Portugal, it's more writing on a dotted line than anywhere else. It really means if I make you an arguido, I have a timeline. I think it's about a year where you actually have to bring charges. So you are, so the police is really required to, move, schnell, let's get it going. You need to bring charges. When you do not make somebody an arguido or an official suspect, then the laws are a bit more loose. You have time allotted to you where you can, continue to investigate without restraining yourself to a timeline. And that's basically what has happened. When I spoke to Dr. Pedro do Carmo, one of the top cops in Portugal, he told me they're not official suspects. And I was like, oh, no, suspect. He goes, whoa. He's like, they're not official suspects. And he assured me all lines of investigation are being investigated, are being looked into. Basically, you have to read in between the lines a little bit. He's saying, no, they're not official suspects, because then we are restricted. we are looking into everything. And that obviously would include them, who were the last people to see their child alive.
And in that same vein, Scotland, another thing I hear often is that Scotland Yard is only investigating an abduction, or the abduction theory, or the pedophile theory. Is that true?
Sure. Well, Colin Sutton, love him. Fantastic, lovely man. He was initially approached, and he felt like what they were going to be investigating was not going to be a full, from the beginning investigation. They would exclude the McCann. This is what he was told. I believe that. I also believe that since then, as police investigate, they run into things. And when you run into things, you cannot ignore certain items. I personally believe that Scotland Yard is a real investigation. I believe that they are working with the Portuguese, and in the end, they will want the truth. It is true that I have put in a call into Scotland Yard, and I have spoken to them, and they have given me 31 minutes of their time. They didn't give me any specific news that are not in the public. We talked about general ideas on investigation, what is and what is not correct, what things can be investigated, just very general type of stuff. And it was lovely. It was kind of what I expect from American police. And I know, in the world that we live in, if you have a question, you can call your local police and ask the question, and they'll tell you what the law is. You can do that or you cannot do that. And that's pretty much what I got from Scotland Yard and Operation Grange. Just very fair, very friendly, and very, yes, that's possible. No, that's not possible. And, I'm encouraged that Scotland Yard is looking at all lines of investigation, just like as the Portuguese were.
Okay. And then another myth is that there are many pedophiles in Portugal, especially in Praia de Loja.
Okay. Now, this is crazy talk. Portugal has been deemed as the third safest country in the world. They look at all sorts of data. Portugal is a very tiny country. It's a very kind country. I tell my kids all the time, just a few years ago when I was in Portugal with my daughter, she's like, Mom, like our people. And she calls it our people. I think it's cute. They're so nice, like our family. There's like 30 of us that showed up to a family reunion, we are so united in like what's moral and what's right, and I just think that both British people and Portuguese people, they just want the truth. And there are questions that need to be answered. Like when Summers and Swan went on like, there's nothing against the McCanns that's suspicious. Please be honest. Please. There are plenty of people, U.S. Marshals, FBI, journalists, Scotland Yard, like Colson, like even Linda, I can't think of her name right now. But there's plenty of people who will. They're not saying the McCanns are guilty. They're saying there are questions that are still floating that need to be answered. I personally do not believe the McCann story. So that's it. I don't believe their story. But I believe that they need to have their voices heard, but they have had their voices heard. And the people are making their decisions in what they've heard.
Okay. So Portugal, did you say it's the third safest country in the world? Or
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And the saddest thing, they are saying now that it could actually be the second safest country in the world by the World Trade Organization. I don't know. I
third,
don't know.
possibly second safest place in the world. It is not teeming with pedophiles and is a dangerous place. And interestingly, Jerry McCann said he felt very safe himself there in an interview.
Yes, he did. Yes.
So,
The interesting thing about Jerry McCann is that we hear him talking about how they felt that leaving children in rooms alone, okay, and we keep talking about like this is a hotel room. It's not a hotel room. It's a condo. It's a condo. You live in a resort that rents out condos. This is really what we're dealing with. If we were looking at American standards, it's almost like a timeshare. You know, you're like in a resort, but it's not really a hotel. We're dealing with condos, and this condo was rented out to the McCanns. I still don't understand why the McCanns were there. I feel that kind of an odd place for, you know, a group of doctors, but that's not here nor there. So I just, with Jerry McCann feeling safe, he felt safe, but an hour later, he's telling somebody that there are a group of pedophiles in Portugal, and that Madeleine has been taken.
right. So they immediately went to, he felt so safe that when his daughter went missing, he immediately thought of a group of pedophiles, which brings me to the next myth, which is that the McCanns, everyone reacts differently to tragedy, and that the McCanns' behavior and actions were normal or ordinary.
So I have never had a child missing, and I adore both of my children. And I know that any parent at some point has had, like, a kid go missing at a store and you completely freak out and lose it. You know I was jogging with my daughter once, and she went ahead of me, and I completely lost it. But maybe, you know, like, I don't know, I'm paranoid over this case, so I'm thinking, you know, like, there's people, you know, scary people at every corner. But basically, this is what Barry McCann was pushing, was that there are, you know, pedophiles in Portugal, and, you know, Madeleine has been taken by a pedophile. Yet, when we listen to the McCanns on many interviews, they are completely fine, and maybe Madeleine's been taken to Morocco, and maybe it was a wealthy family. One of their big supporters has even claimed that Madeleine has been taken by a sect of the royal family, and Madeleine is very, very well taken care of. And
she's now royalty. You know. Oh, that's interesting theory. And
yeah.
Let's just look at some of the behavior just really quickly. They called the press very quickly. Isn't that correct? The McCanns?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
The McCanns called the press very quickly after Madeleine went missing?
Putting it out in the media, it was the thing to do.
Right.
Well, you know, to be honest, I can't blame that. I've never faulted that. I've just faulted the fact that it took them almost 40 minutes to call the police.
Okay.
40 minutes. Madeleine's alarm was 10 o'clock, but on record, 10:40 was the first phone call that left the Ocean Club. And these are facts. These are facts that can be, you know, easily looked at. So 40 minutes before calling the police. So, you know, everything else, I'm calling the media, I'm okay with that. You know, in a new world, you call the media and you try to get attention to yourself. I've never been a big critic of that. I've been a critic, however, of did you call the media before you called the police?
Right.
So if Madeleine was missing at 10 and at 10:40, the first call went out. But by midnight, 12:01, I believe, was the first report in Europe that Madeleine was missing. This is a very tight schedule. So, I don't want any lies. I want the truth to be purported. If the truth falls to benefit the McCann, that's fine.
But they were also, after Madeleine went missing, they were also jogging, they were playing tennis, they were planning a birthday party. I mean, things that you don't see too often, wouldn't you say?
When you see balloons flying in the air and missing children and people laughing, yeah, you would think there's something not right here.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't. I can't.
Okay.
I just can't. If my child was missing, I think I would be digging myself in his or her pillow. I would be crying my eyes out. I would not be out releasing balloons for their birthday just 7 days after they were missing. I just can't. I can't.
Right.
It just seems so out of character. People always say, you can't judge people. You can't. Fine. I'm not going to judge, but I'm going to think of how, of how I would feel, when people feel this way about their animals, their children. And it's so, sometimes it's like, you can't pair animals to children. No, actually you can, because it is like how you relate to someone and how much you love them and how you are going to feel about them. I think you can relate animals to children in some aspect.
Right. You would search. The fact that Kate McCann didn't search is very odd, and I think that parents of missing children there's a spectrum of normal behavior, and the McCanns are not on that spectrum, I would say.
They're not. And, that Kate McCann spoke about it that in the morning when she got up and they went out searching for Madeleine at 6 a.m. Well, let's not forget that many people had been searching for Madeleine before Kate McCann decided to get up and search for her daughter at 6 a.m. and they admitted to sleeping that night. You think, wow, Madeleine, Kate McCann said, I opened a trash can, just one trash can. There's many trash cans. And she thought, oh, God, don't let Madeleine be here. And this is what she told the public. They're like, one trash can? You said one trash can and you had this thought.
Wow.
Where are the other trash cans? And it's just like, there's all these little things that Kate McCann has said, like Madeleine was laying, on a cold slab and her skin looked mottled, all these, interesting thoughts. And you think, what are you trying to tell us? And she had this dream where she told the police about the dream where Madeleine was buried on the hill. But Jerry McCann, he was out of town when she told the police this. And then they come back and, no, this is not really what Kate was thinking. All of these things come back to us and think, what is this? Was this a woman that just had it and she thought they couldn't get away with it anymore and just wanted to tell the truth,
Yes, it's very, very interesting. And can we just talk about cadaver dogs being very unreliable and that they can't be used in court? I've heard that as an argument many times. Is that true?
Well, sure. This was something that Jerry McCann pushed, that cadaver dogs are not reliable. Well, at the time, I believe Jerry McCann was flying high on a case called the Zapata case. And in the Zapata case, the judge did not want to admit into evidence the cadaver dog. And this is an American case. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, the judge was wrong not to, because the husband of this woman admitted that indeed all the places that that cadaver dog had alerted to, which were odd places, were places that family, that husband and wife had been to, and her body had been, oh God, I can't deal with it. It's so hard to deal with. But anyways, the cadaver dogs were right all along, and they had indicated every single place in the end.
And
I have spoken to many people who are experts on cadaver dogs, especially here on the West Coast in the United States. And one of them is that there are statistics for cadaver dogs, but false positives are very rare. Usually, the statistics that go against cadaver dogs is when they don't alert. But when a cadaver dog actually alerts and says, bark, 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 and a dead body was here, those are usually very accurate.
right,
Let's remember that in the Madeleine McCann case, cadaver dogs and blood dogs alerted 13 times at least. You know, it goes from 13 to 17. These are positive alerts. So what are we saying? That the cadaver dogs were wrong 13 times? We can't be saying that. We don't get on planes when dogs alert to a bomb on a plane. These dogs are very specific. They alert to death. They are trained specifically to death or bomb on drugs. I know that one time I was at my daughter's school, and one of the dog trainers was leading the school, and they said, "How accurate are they for drugs?" And she said, "Oh, they are very, very accurate. If they alert, they have spotted drugs." And
right.
in the United States, you know, they don't want any drugs in the schools. So, you know, drug dogs are regularly deployed.
Right. But what I understand about drug dogs is it's a much closer relationship with a handler than what I saw when I was looking at the video of the cadaver dogs, where the handler was way away from them. It's not like a drug stop with a car stop where the dog's on a leash and you could maybe get the dog to false alert. These dogs are off leash, running around an apartment or running around a big area. It's much different than some of what we think of when we think of like a drug dog alerting. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I totally know what you're saying. And there is, you know, I've learned all the time that some of the dogs are trained to sniff the air and some are trained to trail. So there's air and trailing. And EVRD dogs are a bit different. And cadaver dogs are really specifically trained. And blood dogs, too. They don't alert to anything else other than what they have specifically trained to alert. Like drug dogs. But drug dogs, like, you sniff the air, too. And then D dogs are literally they sniff the ground. It's very different of how they are trained. You know, I'm not a trainer, so I'm not, you know, I only know what I have learned. But I do know that people have told me at the top ranks of cadaver dog training that Martin Grime would have never risked his career, because this is what McCann's tried to push, that he was, you see their supporters talking about this, that he would manipulate and want the dogs to frame them and keep them. And people in this type of work are like, who would give up this type of training, these type of high-qualified dogs who went to work for the FBI, who have at the top of the scale would ruin their record because they want to frame the McCanns. What is this? The
Right.
Portuguese, everybody wants to frame the McCanns. Shut
Right.
up.
Was
Nobody wants to frame the McCanns. I don't want to frame the McCanns. I don't care about the McCanns. I care that their daughter, Madeleine McCann, gets justice. This is it. I don't care about the McCanns. They can go fly a kite, an American expression, and maybe British. I don't know.
okay.
I don't care. I care about them.
And furthermore, Martin Grimes, who is a UK citizen and who flew over to Portugal with his dogs, his cadaver dogs and his blood dogs, Eddie and Keela, with the idea that he was going to frame one of his own fellow citizens just for the Portuguese government is even more outrageous, no?
Of course, it's outrageous. Not only Martin Grimes did he come, so he's this British guy. He was recommended to come to Portugal by the British, and he's a British police officer. So now a British police officer is framing the McCann. It's such a ridiculous concept, okay? Also, we have to understand that there was a report that was made by Mr. Harrison, okay, that requested that Martin Grimes came to Portugal. So this is not, just, the Portuguese like, oh, we found a guy and he might come. No. Mr. Harrison, Mark Harrison, made a report and he made specific. This is a man that was trained. He was a British officer who was supposed to make recommendations to the Portuguese of what should be done. So Mark Harrison makes a report. This is in the police file. And another thing that Mark Harrison report mentions is the luminol. Okay? We all know what luminol is.
Sure.
Police use it all the time. Mr. Harrison said all the places where the luminol saw blood or envisioned blood need to be revisited by these cadaver blood dogs. When Robin Swan, I'm sorry, Robin, could be a very nice person. I don't know you. You're not being honest. Come on. Luminol detected blood. Luminol has been known to this science. It detects blood. What are we gonna get out of this? This examination. We're gonna get that luminol was used. It detected blood, and then Mark Harrison, a British subject, hired by British police, made a recommendation that cadaver dogs come to Portugal, look at all the places where the luminol was used, and see what they find. And what did they find? They found cadaver odor and blood. And just stop it. In the Netflix documentary, Robin Swan and Mr. Swan, I think he's like secondary to her now. I think he was the main guy, but he's secondary to her now. And, she's saying no blood was found. So the luminol, we just ignore that. We throw it out the window, and no police shall ever use luminol again because it means absolutely nothing. And now Dr. Perlin in the United States, one of the most amazing geneticists, who says Madeleine cannot be eliminated from the test. He's wrong too. Now Robin Swan has said that she spoke to some of the world's top geneticists, but yet she failed to name them. Well, Mark Tinokonoko in Australia from 9 News actually named a geneticist, named him. And he isn't buying it, and he's saying Madeleine cannot be eliminated. So, dear Robin, my challenge is to you. Who are these geneticists you're naming, you're talking about, but you failed to name? You never named them. Who are they? Put it on record. We'd like to know.
Anyone who's a true crime watcher will recognize that technique of referring to kind of a group of people or a group of experts and announcing their results without ever having to present them.
And that is exactly what she did on Netflix. She threw out names, but she failed to name them. Mark Tinokonoko in Australia, 9 News, had no problem mentioning who his source was. And his source is highly regarded in the United States, including the 9/11, which I believe Mr. Summers and Swan is quite familiar with.
Right, they wrote a book on 9/11, no? Is that correct?
Oh, they wrote many books.
One
of the books, I think you and I have talked about, was his book on Marilyn Monroe, which many people found it offensive when he decided to publish Marilyn Monroe's death picture and
post-autopsy.
Oh, that is, I don't even want to go into it because it's so sad. In today's world, it would never happen. The woman is to blame, and she's crazy, and her face is sagging, and maybe that's just because of the autopsy picture. But President Kennedy, who was enamored with Marilyn Monroe, has nothing to answer for. But, those are just details.
Right. So, finally, I guess the myth that anyone who doesn't believe the McCanns or who doesn't believe the Netflix narrative that this is a case of an abduction, is a troll.
Okay, well, that's quite amazing because the people that are out there and speaking and asking for questions to be answered are people in Scotland Yard. They are people, U.S. Marshals, FBI, just some pretty well-known top positions, and even the Madeleine McCann Fund. There are people who are accountants who feel that the Madeleine McCann Fund has not been very clear about the $4 million that went into, and there's less than $1 million in it right now. So we need to start asking questions. Nobody's a troll, and Mrs. Swan is welcome to contact me anytime. And I know that they've spoken about me in their book before. They added a whole chapter to add me to it. I'm just a Portuguese woman who happens to be a housewife who happens to not believe the McCann. I'm not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. I'm just a normal Portuguese U.S. citizen who has questions and does not believe the status quo.
And I agree with you. I think that when we have respectful debate, when we have dialogue, we learn from each other, and it can and really educate one another through debate, through dialogue, and it's getting the opportunity and the venues seem to be getting less and less, and it's being frowned upon. So I really appreciate you spending the time today to dispel some of these myths. And thank you so much, Isabelle McFadden. And where can we find you?
Oh, I'm just on Twitter. My Facebook is very impersonal. It's
Okay.
friends and family.
Follow Isabelle McFadden on Madeleine McCann Case Tweets. You'll learn a lot, I promise. Thank you so much, Isabelle.
Thank you.